Welcome back to Boss Uncaged Podcast. So this particular episode is a special episode because I've been trying to get this individual person on this show since season 1 in my first 5 episodes. She is a friend. We've been bouncing business ideas since like day 1. I remember when she was a photographer, then she became Danny Vox, which is like a voiceover artist. She became a singer, and I'm going to deem her like I deem everyone else on the show with a special name, and her name is going to be the Sound Boss. So without further ado, the floor is yours. Tell our audience a little bit more about who you are and what you do, Danielle.
Oh my God, Shadal, dude. First of all, mad love. You are, however our journeys have been going over the last 21 years. I've known you since 2000. When I was thinking about it, I was like, dang, man, like, we got 2 decades, and like, I love it. I was coming from a military family, military brat, and moving every 2 to 3 years growing up. Like, I don't have those like longer relationships that a lot of people do when they grow up in one place. And like, my family is it's my AI crew. It's like the chosen family, and you're my heart. You're one of what in that like chosen family. So I'm stoked to finally be here. Yes. Finally be collected to share and hopefully, support others in their journey wherever they are in their business and life.
Yeah. So, I think with that, it is like it's a hell of a segue because, even with my own introduction, obviously the wave, and I always call it the wave of writing, trying to figure out, like, you've been in sound, but you didn't know exactly where in sound until you actually fell into sound therapy. So, like, let's unpack that. Let's peel back the onions, and let's start off with the first question, right? If you could define yourself in 3 to 5 words, what would those 3 to 5 words be?
You prepped me for this, and I was still like, I don't even know. I would say adaptable, loving, and you know what? I don't know. You know what? That should be something I like text a bunch of friends right now and just be like, hey, if you could describe me in 5 words, what would it be? When I think about just my journey and how I like to show up, I think it's always, if I was to describe myself, it would really be about, I follow my gut. I follow feeling, and somehow, the things and everything just seems to fall into place. Those of you who are into astrology, I am a Pisces. So, there's a little bit of that going on, but I'm probably the most grounded Pisces you'll ever know, the most pragmatic Pisces that you'll ever know.
Nice.
I think that's a hard question, but to come back to kind of one of the things, you just said was, this, like it all came back to sound. It all came back to music in some sense. And I was in band in high school, 7th through 12th grade. I was in concert band and symphonic band and marching band. And, growing up, I had all of these on again, off again symptoms of just being sick all the time and not feeling well in my body. And I didn't realize it in high school, but music was always something that I came back to. It was something that brought me this sense of peace, this solace, peace in my body, peace in my mind, to trust that, I could just follow a feeling, and trust whatever it was, universal guidance, spirit, universal consciousness, whatever it was, that there was something greater than me that I could trust. And that whatever I was feeling in my body didn't own me. I just accepted it. But yeah, the, photography, I was supposed to go in the Army. My dad was really pushing, and in 2000, the military was really pushing for more women coming into the Army, especially going to West Point. And so my dad was really trying to push me to do that. I had no idea what the hell I was going to do with my life. And my dad was like, well, you got to go to school or you got to get a job. And I was still like, I'm working at a 1 hour photo plus, a Sonic drive through and, like going through these little jobs. And I'm like, I can't see myself doing this forever. But, so I went to this job fair, found this lovely, I'm taking all the pamphlets and sticking it in a bag, not really knowing what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to do what my dad says and, try to, get into West Point. Didn't know if I was smart enough to do it, but they wanted women. So I was like, all right, cool. And I started to go through that process, but there was this woman at the college fair and she was like, hey, come to the Art Institute of Atlanta. And, what are your interests? And I was like, I think maybe photography. And then I applied, ended up getting the half scholarship to go and ended up going to art school instead of the Army.
I mean, that's definitely interesting, right? Because I mean, that's how we found each other. I was at art school at the same time in different grade levels, right? But I think becoming friends and seeing your journey unfold, let's just dive into that a little bit. Because I remember, like, after graduation, you were just kind of like, okay, I'm about to move to California. And so everybody was like, what the hell? Like, what's going on? And then like you packed everything up and you decided, I remember you was getting your brakes done. You was getting oil changes. You was getting the car completely ready for this crazy road trip. And then you just did it. You just leaped into fate and said, the hell with everything. I'm just going to do it. And you went to California. And that's when you really found yourself. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right. I mean, you're definitely a witness to the evolution of me. And, it was, I remember I was doing this internship with a photographer, Jim Viscus, amazing photographer, amazing commercial photographer in Atlanta. And his advice to me was, if you're going to do photography anywhere, don't do it in Atlanta. And I was like baffled because I was getting my community in Atlanta. I had you guys, like I felt mad love. This felt like the first, Atlanta felt like home to me. It was the first time in my life that I felt any place was home. And here's, my mentor being like, if you're going to do photography, don't do it here in Atlanta because you couldn't really specialize at the time. And I graduated in 2003, ended up moving to California in 2004. And I just took his advice and was like, all right, cool. I got $1,000 in my savings. My lease is coming up. And, Alicia, our mutual friend, Alicia Briscoe, amazing woman. Like she did the road trip with me. And yeah, I sold everything, got rid of everything except for what could fit in my, God, what was I driving? Ford Escort, 2-door hatch. So it's not even big. Doesn't even have a big back seat.
You've always found a way to stuff things into little cars, right?
That's, what, that is part of my journey too.
Yeah. So let's continue talking about that. So you stuffed everything in the car, right? You went to California, essentially as a photographer. So like, where on this journey did you become like sound? I think you became a vocalist, you became a voiceover artist. Like, just unpack that. Let's talk about that a little bit. Like, how do these things happen?
I mean, photography is definitely a love of mine. And, I did it because I felt like if any of your listeners are coming in and they're experiencing, not feeling well in their body, you're sick or, you are experiencing immense fatigue. I mean, I had a lot of things that were going on and off for me. I wasn't, and of course I didn't know this at the time, but I wasn't necessarily living in my body. I was reacting to the world and I was reacting in a way that was, out of safety. I was coming from a fear mindset with that, where I was afraid that my friends, my family, potential romantic, partners, or even, people that I was dating, would one day just wake up and realize, holy shit, it sucks to be with somebody who's sick all the time. And so there's a certain way of being and decision making when you're sick all the time, where you kind of figure out how to not look sick all the time, or go out and kind of go with the flow in a way where you're able to not lead on that you're so uncomfortable in your body. And so, and I didn't know this at the time, but like there was something that photography gave me that was this outlet of creativity and outward expression, where when I was in the moment of photographing someone, I could be as silly as I needed to be, knowing that even though that was a part of me, it wasn't a side of myself that I really let out so much. I didn't, it was just a part of my personality that I didn't feel like I could really show, because I was so busy in my relationships trying to maintain and be there for everybody else, because I wanted to create value and not show that I was a burden because I was sick all the time. And so, I get to San Francisco, and, I ended up choosing San Francisco because I had emailed the APA presidents at the time in LA and San Francisco, and was like, hey, I'm new to California, or I'm new to your city. And, what's your advice for new photographers moving into the city? And the guy in LA was like, you're going to scrape gum off the sidewalk. You're going to start off as second or third assistant, and you're not going to make any money. And I'm like, well, fuck. All right. That's not exactly cool. All right, LA, thanks. And then San Francisco guy basically said the same thing, but he was like, bring your business cards to an APA meeting. I'll introduce you to people. Let's help you get started in the photography world. And that's literally how I chose San Francisco over LA, was because of that one man. And so I moved. I had stayed, with my aunt in Monterey for a little bit to just kind of figure out, all right, here or there. Moved to San Francisco, and, did exactly what Jeff Couch said, and met him at an APA meeting, and, just started my journey in photography. And it was when I was 28 years old, when I became not my normal sick. And I started losing my hair. I started losing the enamel on my teeth. I had chronic constipation and migraines and crazy skin issues. And, going to the doctor, going to the emergency room wasn't out of the norm for me. I had different medications that were trying to help me in different ways, but this particular visit was different. I went in, and, I was wearing a hospital gurney, and, sat on the, the table. I was by myself because, again, like, this is normal for me. I'm just like, hey, my name is Danielle. Let me sign the paper. Here's my insurance. Boom. I know the process. And, I'm sitting in there, I'm in the gurney, and, it's already a vulnerable situation to, like, have your back out, and you're, on this table in this cold room, right? And the doctor comes in, and he picks up my chart. He doesn't look at me at all. He picks up my chart, and he goes, well, Ms. Hall, if we don't find out what's going on with you, you're going down a really dark road. Puts my chart down and walks out of the room. And that was the first time that I think got the wake up call that I needed around my health. It shifted my perspective enough to be like, well, what do you mean? What's actually happening? And, it ended up that my body was deteriorating at a rapid rate, is what he was saying. We need to figure out why, you are malnourished. We need to find out why, we're going to do all these blood tests. We got to do all of these different tests. And I go home, and I'm, sitting there by myself, and I just, I didn't believe, I've never been a religious person, but I would say that I'm spiritual. And so in this moment, I just sat there, and started the ugly cry, like the one with the snot and like the tear, your face is puffing up. And, I'm cursing at God. And I'm just like, what the F? Like, what, I'm 28 years old. I'm going to be bald and toothless. Who's going to want me? Who's going to want to be my friend? Who's going to want to this, that, and the other? And it was, realizing that conversation is who's going to want me. Mm-hmm. Was something that really stuck with me. And then, when you have the ugly cry, that really deep, lethargic cry, like you feel this internal kind of vibration start to happen, and you feel your skin, you feel how heavy, the weight of how much you care, or the weight of the problem is. And it was, honestly, I just heard, you're going to be fine, be open. Now, it wasn't like a voice that I heard. It was like a knowing sense. And it was just like this knowing sense that came over me that was like, you're going to be fine, be open. And again, I went, what the F, and I start cursing again and crying again. And the very next day, a naturopathic doctor came into my awareness. And, I don't even know how this person, like, it was like up on Google one day, naturopathic doctor. And I ended up going to her only because she had doctor in the name. I was very skeptical of anything health and wellness and anything that alluded to the woo. And, I went to her and found out that all of my health issues, all of my health challenges from a young age were a freaking gluten allergy. So, I'm 28 years old, took gluten out of my diet, felt what healthy felt like for the first time in my life. Things like, I didn't realize how much inflammation I was holding. I saw my nose for the first time at 28. I was starting to really see what my body looked like at 28. Like, things were starting to work the way that they were supposed to at 28. And this started to peel back, we're saying the onion, peel back the layers of, all right, well, if food can affect my body, what are the other things that can affect my body? And then it was this question of, if I wasn't open to the conversation of how food affected my body before this experience, what else am I not open to? Where else am I holding judgments and these biases? And so, taking my photo background, I kind of went more into my own personal project, not necessarily of photographing different modalities, but going in to try to understand the language and the marketing around these things, because what we see out in the world, we're getting these patterns over and over and over and over again. When we see the same things and we're in the same environment and we're getting the same feedback, we tend to believe that that is the way it has to be, or that is the way that it is, and there are no other choices. And so, I went into my first massage, and looked at the limiting beliefs that I had around that. I went into my first yoga class. I went into like a chakra crystal balancing thing, and I was, going in super judgmental of all of these things, and realizing like, wow, I have a judgment around, this is only for rich people, or, oh, this is a judgment around, only tall, bendy women do yoga, or, oh, only hippies do crystal therapy. And then I go into this sound bath, and, I'm going to give you the story because it's where I was at that time, super judgmental around these experiences. It is not how I think today. But, I go in, it was a free sound bath, and what I did not know was that it was a after Burning Man sound bath. So if anybody doesn't know about Burning Man, maybe go Google it. But it's a desert party, a lot of free love and art, and it's a really interesting community. I'd love to go one day, but at that time I was very closed off to this conversation, and so I walk in and there's this guy who's wearing drop crotch pants. He's not wearing shoes, he's not wearing a shirt. He's wearing like this little vest. He's got like long dreads, and he's like talking like this, and he's like moving his arm like this, and he's very kind of like bouncy in this space and bouncy in this conversation, and he's just like, hey, welcome. And in my mind I'm like, you're very LA, but I don't know, I'm just going to shut up and I'm just going to like follow along. And he's like, welcome, you're going to take off your shoes and you're going to put your stuff in the cubby and you're going to walk around the corner, you're going to lay down. And I'm like, okay. And, I'm showing up in my skinny jeans and my Nike lifts and my Giants baseball cap. And I'm looking around the room, and there's like a Jesus and a Buddha and a Kuan Yin and incense burning and bad patchouli. And but I do the thing. I go through the room, I take off my shoes, I put my stuff in the cubby, I walk around the corner, and now here's all of these other people who are wearing fur, who are got like glitter on their face and got like feathers in their hair, and they're all doing like some cuddle puddle massage situation. And my mind just starts freaking out. I don't want to be disrespectful, but my mind just starts flipping out. And I'm like, all right, this is not for me. I just need to leave. This is not where I'm meant to be. And so I turn around and I, start to make my way out. And the same guy who had, checked me in was like, oh, where are you going? And I'm like, dude, you know what? It's cool. Congratulations on a full event. Like, I'll come back another time. I see people brought blankets and pillows, and like, I'll come back early so I could get a spot. By this time, the whole group of people are now looking at me, and now I'm feeling peer pressure because now the guy's like, we can make room. And these two guys kind of like move over, like maybe about this much space, just enough for me to like wiggle in there. And in my mind, I'm just like, Chanel, like I was so so self-conscious about my body. I was not comfortable in my body at all. That like in my mind, I'm like, I got to touch naked elbows with these guys. That was too much. It was like too much for my brain. And so but I'm feeling peer pressured at this point because everybody's like, they're nice and they're like, come on, lay down, it's cool. So I sit there in between these two dudes and I'm like holding my legs, and all of a sudden the lights go out. I don't know, what's going on. And then they start, like, people lay down and they start this music, and I lost it. I freaked out. I just yelled out like, hey, I don't know what this is. They stopped the music. And I don't know what this is. I've never been to a sound bath. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, in my brain, like when you can't control what's going on.
Let's hold on 1 second. Now, for anybody that's listening to this episode right now, right? This woman is like the sound therapy goddess. So for her to say that her first sound therapy was like this horror movie situation to where she thought she was pretty much getting kidnapped by a cult and screaming and hollering, I want you to understand this. This woman makes a living by producing the content that scared the living shit out of her to begin with, right? Continue the story. I'm listening. Go ahead.
No, you're totally true. It's totally true. But like this whole experience actually informed how I do mine. And I could get back to that in just a moment. But, I have this freak out moment. They stop, and the guy was just like, don't worry. Everything's going to be fine. Be open. And honestly, it was those words. Because almost a year prior, like I was saying, when I was going through this, this crisis, this health crisis, that was that knowing sense right in the beginning of that journey when I got back from the hospital was, you're going to be fine, be open. And then almost a year later, this dude that I'm super hardcore judging is like, you're going to be fine, be open. I'm like, what the fuck, WTF? And so I lay down, I'm just like, all right, cool. And I'm like all like this and like super tense. And I don't know at what point I actually like relaxed into the experience, but I just remember I was gone. And then I had this immense emotional release. And I lost control over like my body. I started shaking, not like a seizure, but like I could feel my body shaking. It was like that fight, flight, freeze shake, to release all of the cortisol, all of the trauma, all of like the body was releasing all of these stuck emotions. And I, was letting out these howls. I mean, it was like these like guttural sounds and these deep sobs of just sadness and anger and all of this energy. All of this was coming up. It actually stopped the whole sound bath.
Wow.
And those same people that I was judging, those same people that I was projecting on, they were there to take care of me. They, rubbed my back, got me water, got me tissue. They, went into some humming exercises around me that, is actually really calming for the nervous system. And of course, I don't know any of this at the time. I'm just like, why am I losing control over my body? And I don't do this. Someone who's sick all the time and you can't control what's going on in your body, you try to control everything in your external environment. I was a little bit OCD up until that point. And, to lose control in this way was just, it was too much. And so, when I could finally ask, what the heck this was and what the heck happened to me, the practitioner couldn't really share. He didn't really know. He said I was releasing stuck emotions, but I was like, all right, cool. What the heck are stuck emotions? Okay. What do I do about this? And he's like, well, I don't really know. Come back tomorrow. This is a school. And, my teacher can share and tell you more. And I was like, what? This is I'm looking around, this is a school, and I show back up the next day and my face is like all puffy and, I was pissed off because I was having some of the symptoms that I had prior to knowing that I had a gluten allergy. And, I went in, talked to the owner of the school, and he was like, yeah. I was like, well, when are your next classes? And he was like, well, we already started for the next certification program. We're 2 weeks in. And I was like, here's my credit card. I need to sign up right now. And it was literally that, not to become a sound practitioner. That was not my mission in that point in time, but it was to try to understand what the heck happened to me, what was happening to me in my body, and find more empowerment around it, because I was just blown out of the water.
So let's just recap this, right? Again, we're talking to like a sound goddess in today's world, right? But you're saying on your journey, you were a photographer, you was trying to figure things out, you went to California, some weird hippie guy told you to come in the room, turned off the lights, you were completely weirded out. You stopped the sound bath. Like, I've been to your sound bath before, so I couldn't even imagine someone acting the way you were acting during their first sound bath. Right. So like, even I took my son and he completely fell asleep and he was bothering everybody by snoring. That's how quiet the room gets. And then not only do you freak out, but then your ass gets up and goes back the next day, is what you're telling us. You go back the next day and then you just say, take my credit card and sign up. You sound batshit crazy. I'm just going to be very frank, right? You sound crazy.
The best journeys are batshit crazy. I think like anytime you just follow the nuggets of spirit, follow those, those intuitive hits, like, you don't really know where it's going to lead you, but hopefully it's, usually it is to peace, it is to healing, it is to fulfillment, it is to more alignment in your life. And, even before the sound healing though, I was getting sick, or I had that moment of, within that year, I was just like, photography isn't for me anymore. Like I was having this internal struggle with, how I was changing and evolving within myself to the conversations that I was having with my work. So, for example, it was all about, in the commercial world, it is, you're casting, part of the casting conversation is, for example, kids, is casting some kids for the shoot. And, it's like, that's a handsome kid. That's a pretty kid. We're already putting these labels, and we're already kind of, looking at people in a way that's what's marketable and what is beauty, and we're defining beauty, and we're, and there was a time that I was within that same period where I was on this retouching job, same thing, this like big company, and they're like, okay, we need you to Photoshop her waist in, her breasts a little bit more full to fill this bra, and we need you to retouch her feet, and whatever it was. It was just like, no, I'm augmenting her body. And there were all of these conversations of what beauty was, and I couldn't see myself in any of the examples of what I was casting as beautiful, or what I was being asked to do that would represent beauty. And so my self-worth and my, internal dialogue around my own beauty was becoming more and more diminished and not healthy. And so, I mean, I don't know exactly what it was. I got into voiceovers and I got into acting. And that was, a period of time that, I was trying to explore, like how I could be more of an outward expression of myself, and in taking on other roles. I really love the voiceover world and the voiceover work. And then
put it into perspective, right? I mean, you're talking about several different disciplines, and you were talking about college. So let's like put a time frame on this, right? We always hear about the overnight success stories, but in reality, it probably takes 20 years. How long have you been on this journey from where you are right now to from when you were going into college?
Oh my God, 21 years. I mean, so college was 2000 to 2003, graduated BFA in photographic imaging in 3 years, moved to California in 2004, and was really pursuing that. The photography time from school to when I was evolving out was 11 years. I was in the industry for 9 before I realized, that was, it was 28 when I had that episode. And that's when things like really started to shift in my life and my thinking. And, sound healing came kind of in the middle of me exploring more of my interests and trying to dabble into, like, I knew photography wasn't going to be it for me forever. I was using photography as the venture capitalist to my, new venture, which, I thought it was going to be voiceovers. I thought it was going to be acting. And then my 30th birthday was when I came out, and started singing, and started to do performances on stage. And, then that wasn't necessarily the right fit either. But at that time I was going to school for sound healing, and was like 29 when sound healing started to come in. But I was still doing the voiceovers and the acting and, dabbling in those things. But yeah, it was really like I did the course. Gosh, I did the course, and then it was kind of like bam, bam, bam. I did the course, and then a friend of mine was like, do you want to come out of photo retirement and come, assist me on this job? And I was just like, oh, I really don't want to, but for you, fine. And it ended up being in Bali. And, I went out there and became Reiki master certified out in Bali. And, that was another kind of spiritual awakening, another type of stepping stone of trusting that I was being guided in this really weird area of really weird new endeavor in using sound as a therapy. and tapping into energy as a therapy. Then I'm like speaking at the Somatics conference, and, starting to teach, other other sound practitioners at that time, like how to have a business and how to begin building a business in their health and wellness career. Then I opened up a sound healing studio. I had my own one-on-one practice for a year. 2 years, excuse me. And that just started to expand. So I started on doing one-on-one coaching and therapy sessions for people. And then it moved into doing group sound bath sessions at, it was this gym called Studio Mix in San Francisco. They're still there. I love them. They're really great partners that helped propel me forward. And, that doing the group sound bath sessions then opened me up to do corporate sessions. And then I was doing like some private stuff and like some, bridal showers and things like that, which was interesting. And then that opened me up to getting a contract with a therapy center. And then, I had the opportunity, there was an opportunity that showed up back in Atlanta. So I moved back to Atlanta in December 2015. So we'll just say 2016. And then shit hit the fan. The opportunity went away. I moved back to Atlanta. The opportunity got pulled out from under me. And then I experienced a really low in my career. I was homeless in the sense of, I could not afford to pay for my own space. I was couch surfing for a little while. I was, at the mercy of other people's extra food. I like show up at dinners, and it was like house sitting. And gosh, 2016 was like a shit show year. It took a while to get back on my feet. But one of the things that I did was I did something every day where, I knew Atlanta had changed. I'm in Atlanta at the moment. I knew Atlanta had changed from when I had lived there, 10 years prior, whatever the math is on that, about 10 years. And I knew that sound healing wasn't necessarily like booming here. There were communities doing it more up in like Blue Ridge Mountains and more in like, outside the perimeter, more. When I say hippie, I mean hippie in like the best possible way, but it wasn't being shown in a way that was accessible to regular people, I think. The everyday person who's going to a 9-to-5 job and not necessarily, knows about, living off the land, so, and that's a total overgeneralization. I'm sorry, my hippie community, I love you so much. But, there's, it was to me, the Danielle Halls, who don't know to be open to any alternative therapies in the first place. They don't have that community in place. Right. And so, I knew it was going to take some time to build it here in Atlanta, but I was also trying to maintain what I had built in the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. And so while I was homeless in Atlanta, I was, I was using my credit card to fly back to San Francisco to make sure that the people I was hiring in the different positions out there to maintain what I had going out there were, they were feeling good, and they were, making sure that they were getting paid and they were trained, and like that client was happy. And so, oh gosh. Yeah. And so then what I did here was every day I would go, or every week I would choose a different coffee shop to go to, take my laptop to a coffee shop. And my mission was, get in. How can I get in with the community? What's important to Atlanta? What are the conversations around health and wellness that are already happening here that I can support? And just try to connect with people at the freaking coffee shop. So I would like accidentally bump into people and make conversation. ask them a question about where they got, their jewelry, or, what are the best places to shop, or where do you go to yoga, or do you like yoga? What are your favorite gyms? Try to fit in the health and wellness conversation. And I was new, and I do sound therapy, and, and try to make new friends that way. And
so networking pretty seriously is what you're saying. Like you used the leverage of drinking coffee for networking.
Yeah. And it was insane.
That's definitely interesting. Because I mean, I'm just thinking about, like, I've known you throughout this whole history, right? Because I've seen the ways, right? So with what you just said, like, that was one of your low points. You had a high point before, and obviously you're in a high point now. If you can go back in time anywhere in the last 21 years and whisper something to yourself, what would that thing that you would whisper to change the outcome of where you are right now?
I think it would be, and I think this kind of goes a different direction in conversation, but I think the thing that I would tell myself is to design the life that you want, and not the business, not the career you want. Because I think that a career is just an extension of who you are. I think your work is just an extension of who you are. It doesn't have to be something that's separate. And when I first got into, I haven't really had a regular, 9-to-5 office job. I've always been an entrepreneur. I've had, working at the school, or worked at Sears Portrait Studio, like those were my real jobs. Officey, working for a company in that, getting a W-2 job. But I think that if I would have thought in the perspective of, how do I want to design my life, rather than how do I want to design my business first? Because it's a different mindset in how you make decisions. I wouldn't necessarily do too much different. I think, like, what I have done has everything from the photography to the acting to the, voiceover work and singing. All of those things really are fitting under this umbrella of Sound Embrace, this new business that I have created, almost 9 years ago. Mm-hmm. But in thinking about my lifestyle, I would have also done more, extracurricular activities. I was so focused on work. I was so focused on, granted, right? Like, you're in the beginning of your business, you're in fight or flight. Like, you got to make money to feed yourself. You got to make money to, pay for the roof over your head. I got to pay for these plants, right? Whatever it is. These are my, joys. But, they're the basic needs that we need. And yes, we do need to make money. And sometimes we have to prioritize work, to be able to afford just our basic needs. But what I didn't do early on was really explore my other interests. And so what ended up happening was, I think I would have been a lot stronger of a business person moving forward if I could tap into my other interests and have other things to talk about. So I would go to, like, at the time in photography, I would go to these photography, networking opportunities, and I could talk about photography, and I could talk about, these different ideas of what we could create together. And I could talk about, the latest retouching, whatever. But after that, it was almost like I couldn't connect with somebody on a personal, person-to-person level, on a human level, in a way that was like, oh yeah, like hiking trails. And, now I know what I like to do. I love being out in nature. I love hiking. I love traveling. I love road tripping. I love singing. I love bowling. I love, now I have this understanding. But there's the human element that like people want to work with people that they enjoy working with. They want to work with people who they have some kind of connection with. And while at the time I was good at connecting with people around, it always had to be, strategic questions. I had to be strategic in my questioning of like, what are you interested in? And what do I know about that thing? But I couldn't actually from my heart, connect with them in a deeper way.
That's definitely interesting.
I don't know. Did I just go around in a circle with that?
No. I think you definitely answered it. I think one of the things that you said that I want to pull out from what you said, it was like, you're talking about you've always been an entrepreneur, right? And you're talking about all these different things about music and sound and how you've incorporated into your long time career. So like, I want to know, like, where does that come from? Like, do you come from an entrepreneurial family? Did you have an aunt or an uncle that's historically in your family? Where is the entrepreneurism coming from for you? Question you got to think about,
right? My dad's side of the family is all military. They were all in the Army. My mom's side, is my mom's parents are immigrants from Italy and Portugal. Mm-hmm. But I didn't grow up necessarily with them and the culture of it. It was, we moved every 2 to 3 years. We didn't get to meaning my younger sister and brother, we didn't have that opportunity to really know our extended family. So I think like part of it, is being a military kid is one of those things that like, I love to be on the move. I love to meet new people. I love to know about people. I love to learn about people. It's actually it's pretty easy for me to just like go up and talk to a stranger and, just, make a connection. And I love the genuineness of that. I love the flow of that. And, my dad, he's a little bit of an entrepreneur. My dad is a big card collector. He loves, non-sports trading cards and Star Wars, Star Trek. Like, you look up archive cards on eBay and you get your fix there if you're a collector. And, he did show like a dedication to like what it was to be a collector and what it is to, put yourself out there. But that was like later on in my life, like later on when I was like 17-ish, 16, 17, when I really started to see him like pursue that kind of entrepreneurial endeavor of like actually selling the trading cards. But I don't know. I think, my parents both have really amazing work ethic. My mom, she graduated high school with, D's. She loves to tell this story that, she almost didn't graduate, but she had to like write a paper. She was about to marry my dad and like leave with my dad because he got on tour or something. And, she was always like getting in trouble in school, and she went to the principal and was like, I'm just leaving. I'm not going to graduate, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to get married. And, and the principal was like, I need you to write an essay on what it's like to be a military wife. And, we'll see if we can get you to like pass. And so that's how she passed. And so my mom is just very engaging, I think. And also just somebody who's really like, she could talk to anybody. She built buses, she was on the line building buses. She's on the line building tanks. She's, the first woman to go field service in, when she worked at this bus company. She was the first woman to do a lot of things in this one particular company that was very sexist. And, she had a lot of, sexual abuse that was happening in this company, but she overcame this and like created this really beautiful thing in that company. So, I think I just had parents who just had good, like really good work ethic and instilled that in us. And then I think just being the benefits of, like, there are benefits of being a military. My sister and brother, they like to be in one place. Like,
Mhm.
they are back where we went to high school, and being in one place, they're super happy with that. And me, I like to be out, and I like to be moving, and I like to be creating. So, it does hit differently for everybody, but I think the military background definitely has a lot to do with it.
So you're talking about military. And anybody that knows anything about military is very rigid, right? Like they have particular schedules. Everything's on the schedule. So like my next question goes into like taking that. It looks like you take a lot of your upbringing from being in a military family. How does that transpire into like your morning routines, your morning habits now?
Now, you know what? Now, I have a lot more acceptance of the seasons of what my body needs. Um, Before, I would force myself to get up at 6 a.m. and go do a workout and, try to do some kind of journaling or meditation, and like force these kind of line items into my day, because if I checked off that list of that line item, then it meant that I was doing something and that I was progressing. But then, the deeper I got into doing sound healing work for other people and holding space for other people, the more I realized, the more personal growth came within myself, where it was like, oh, actually, this isn't what I need right now. What I need is I need to sleep to 11. And that's what my body needs right now. And maybe it's because of that particular time of the month, or it's because I just finished a really big project and I need to actually rest. And I think that the more we can come into acceptance that there are seasons to what our bodies need to actually be productive and to actually feel fulfilled, to actually be healthy and have the energy to do the bigger work in the world, is that we need to, listen to our bodies more.
Mm, hmm. I mean, with that, I mean, it kind of leads me into my next question. This is a solid segue to like, okay, final words of wisdom to anyone that has maybe listening to this particular episode and they're hearing your journey, right? They're hearing that you're going through these waves, trying to figure out things, but throughout the journey, sound was the common denominator, but health was also the common denominator. So what insight would you give to an individual that's hearing you, that they're vibing with you, they're hearing what you're giving? What would you deliver to them to help them move forward in their progress to success?
Progress to success. I think that the most important thing that I could leave any of you with is to remember that as you evolve, so will your business.
Mm,
And even if you went to school for the thing, or you've spent 10 years building the thing, you change. And so will your passion in the business that you're creating, and the offerings that you want to give to the world. And to allow yourself that grace and compassion to evolve, into the next iteration of the thing, of the business, or whatever it is that you're trying to put out into the world. I think a lot of people get stuck in, well, I went to school for this, and my parents are putting this pressure on me, and everybody has this expectation for me to do this thing. But you change. We're supposed to change. Our businesses are supposed to change. They're supposed to get better, or we're supposed to evolve out of this old way of being into in alignment with this new way that we know that we can show up. And so allow yourself that opportunity to grieve, to grieve that old self, to honor the old self of what you have built, honor that and celebrate that, but also so that you can create the space so you can move into and step into, this new phase of who you are in your business and your offering, with compassion and more empowerment.
nice, nice. So, I mean, with that, how could they find you? I mean, what's your website? Where are you on social media?
I am at soundembrace.com, SOUNDEMBRACE. And at soundembrace.com, you can find all of my offerings that I currently have between classes, certification program, and sound healing memberships. And I love hanging out on Instagram. So my Instagram is sound_embrace. And yeah, I pop on those Instagram stories, every once in a while, and just like, I don't know who I'm talking to, but hopefully, whatever is shared at that time is helpful. But yeah, it's another way that I like to have conversation with people.
Nice. So going into bonus round, I got a bonus question for you, and I'm really intrigued to see what your answer is going to be. So if you could spend 24 hours with anyone, dead or alive, uninterrupted for those 24 hours, who would it be and why?
Oh man, there are too many people. You know what though? I'm gonna just like flip it. I'm gonna I want to say my grandfather. My grandfather passed away when my mom was 7, and actually, this is like a very unexpected answer, but he just popped into my mind, and I think from um the stories, I want to hear the stories and the human aspect of where my family comes from, um and connect more into this conversation of home, because I think even when we think about home, it's a place that we get to launch from. It's a foundation. It's where we feel safe and where we can really grow and expand, hopefully. And I think if I could have some time, it would be with Grandpa Ladati, Ralph Ladati, and really hear some of these gangster stories, and his background.
Oh, very cool. Another bonus question for you.
Now I'm sweating.
No. This one I think it'll be pretty easy. Considering like the life that you lived, and obviously you still got more life to live, and all the things that you've done, what is your most significant achievement to date?
I'm seeing this is emotional. I launched my certification, my sound healing certification program in 2019. And to see what my graduates are doing in the world with sound healing is just, it's inspiring. It's awe-inspiring. It's, I get to see my legacy in motion, in full manifestation. And yeah, I think that's like helping them to become the leaders that I know that they could be, that they know that they can be, and bringing this powerful work of sound healing therapy into the communities that they're passionate about serving, helps, it comes back to my why I do the work that I do, is to help the other Danielle Halls out there to realize and to see that they don't have to subscribe to the cards that they were dealt in life. And to see that happening, like my students are bringing this into hospitals and, different organizations, and, like in spaces that I never could have imagined, that I think like I am not meant to be in all spaces. And so now there are this different representation being brought out into the world with this powerful therapy. And it's just, I am living the dream come true. I don't really know what is next. I have some ideas of what's next for Sound Embrace, of course, but they're like, it's just like, wow, like if this is where it ends, like this is pretty amazing.
Nice. I think that's a hell of a way to transition into closing. So usually the way I end in my podcast is whoever I'm interviewing becomes the host, and I give you the microphone, and you can ask me any question that you see fit. So the floor is yours.
Shanali, well, I want to know, how do you infuse, like you have one of the biggest hearts that, you have a huge heart. And I want to hear from you, like, what are some of the ways that you infuse and balance too, like the amount of care that you have for people, and how do you infuse that into your work? How do you infuse that into how you're showing up in the world?
Yeah, I mean, just like anybody else in business, you have to go through that roller coaster, and I guess it's ironic because my first brand was cerebral and it was 100% based upon intellect, right? And much like how I've developed and realized that I was both creative and analytical at the same time, to your point, I'm very intellectual, but I have a big heart. And then until I realized that I was 50-50 and kind of brought all these things together. And if you think about like the logo behind me, like the Boss Uncaged, like that's part of the symbolism behind that. It's like these four different arrows coming together, where those arrows are symbolizing analytical, creative,
Mm,
heart, and they all come into one thing. So again, if you look at my story, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now until these discoveries happened. And to your point, putting heart into it was like the last component. I feel like a spokesperson for Captain Planet with the powers combined. You know what I'm saying? And the fifth one comes in and it's heart. I am now Captain Planet, but I didn't become this person until, to your point, I didn't realize that heart was the missing element. Again, I kept leading with my mind, and once I started leading with my heart, that's when everything started happening.
it changes everything.
Completely changes everything. Definitely changes everything. Well, I definitely appreciate you pouring in, and I knew you was gonna come. You was gonna pour in and drop in all the nuggets and be completely exposed. And to your point, at one time you weren't this exposed, right? One time you was kind of, I'm okay, but now you're just like opened up. I'm an open book, and you're just telling your story so freely. And I think our listening community, they can take that and realize that wherever they are in their journey to success, wherever they are in their journey to get to the next level, you're a living, breathing example of these roller coaster rides that you have to go through, but you constantly keep pushing and keep following your dreams. And in the end, it will all work out as long as you stay persistent.
Persistent, and you know what? Define what success means to you, because it's so easy to hide under what other people's ideas of what success is and what it looks like and what it feels like. And honestly, it's changed for me. Success has totally changed for me from when I started in photography to where I am now. And it's just, I couldn't imagine like being in this life, in this body, and experiencing life in this way once I had defined what success is to me.
Mm, nice. Nice. Well, I think with that being the final closing statement, I would want to say thanks for being on the show today. And again, I can't wait to see what you're going to do next. And anybody that has not experienced a sound therapy or a sound bath, first and foremost, if you haven't, make sure that you do it sooner than later. It will definitely change your viewpoint on a lot of different things, and it will probably have you more relaxed than you ever been before in your life, for sure. S.A. Grant, over and out.